Have you ever noticed the people who stay in our minds the longest are not the ones who text us every hour? Sometimes it's the silence, the mystery, the emotion they awaken inside us. In this speech, you will discover why chasing attention pushes love away and why inner peace, emotional presence, and quiet confidence can make someone think about you every single day without sending a single message. Because true attraction is not created by pressure, it is created by the feeling you leave in someone's soul. There is something paradoxical about human attachment, something many people discover too late. The more we try to force ourselves into someone's mind, the more we slowly disappear from their heart. And yet the people who remain unforgettable are often the ones who did not desperately try to be remembered. Many people believe that attention creates connection. So they send another message, then another, hoping to maintain presence, hoping silence will not erase them. But affection does not grow through pressure. A feeling cannot breathe when it is constantly being monitored. Love, attraction, emotional longing, these things need space, they need silence sometimes. They need distance, not to destroy the bond, to reveal its depth. When someone constantly seeks reassurance, they unknowingly communicate fear. And fear has a very particular energy. It says, please don't forget me, please keep thinking about me, please prove that I matter. But true emotional connection does not come from asking for proof every day. It comes from creating an experience so sincere, so calming, so emotionally meaningful that the other person carries it naturally within themselves. Think about the people you remember most deeply in your own life. Often, it is not because they overwhelmed you with messages. It is because they left something inside you unfinished. A feeling, a calmness, a presence that continued existing even after they left the room. Their absence became a kind of silent echo. And this is where many people misunderstand silence. Silence is not punishment. Silence is not manipulation. Silence becomes powerful only when it is peaceful. There is a difference between disappearing to provoke anxiety and stepping back because you are emotionally secure enough not to chase constantly. One comes from control. The other comes from inner stability. When you stop trying to occupy every second of someone's attention, something beautiful happens. You allow memory to do its work, you allow curiosity to awaken, you allow emotions to mature quietly. Because human beings do not only connect through presence, they also connect through reflection. Sometimes, someone realizes your value precisely in the moments you are not there. And your responsibility is not to wait obsessively near the phone. Your responsibility is to return to yourself, to your life, to your peace, to the things that make your spirit feel alive again. Because the most magnetic people are not those who revolve entirely around another person. They are those who remain connected to themselves. There is something deeply attractive about someone who does not panic in absence. Someone who can love without collapsing. Someone who can miss another person without abandoning their own emotional center. That kind of calmness is rare. And because it is rare, it becomes unforgettable. You see, emotional dependence creates tension, but emotional balance creates desire. When every interaction carries the weight of fear, the connection becomes exhausting. Yet when someone feels free rather than controlled, they begin returning voluntarily. Not because they are forced to, but because your presence feels light instead of heavy. And often the irony is this. The moment you stop trying so hard to stay inside someone's mind, you begin living there naturally because people remember energy, they remember peace, they remember how they felt in your presence. If every interaction feels anxious, demanding, or emotionally chaotic, they may respond out of obligation, but deep inside, they slowly disconnect. But if your presence feels calm, sincere, and emotionally safe, your absence begins to speak for you even when you say nothing at all. Absence is not emptiness. Sometimes it is where desire becomes visible. There is another misunderstanding many people carry about attraction. They believe being unforgettable means being constantly visible, constantly talking, constantly entertaining. But human memory does not work that way. We do not remember people simply because they occupied our time. We remember them because they touched something emotional inside us. A person can speak to you every day and still leave no trace in your heart. Another person may say very little yet remain in your thoughts for years. Why? Because one gave information, while the other gave emotion. This is why becoming unforgettable is not about mastering conversation. It is about mastering presence. It's about learning how to make another human being feel seen, safe, understood, and emotionally alive in your company. Because at the end of the day, people are not searching only for attention, they are searching for emotional experiences. Many relationships today remain trapped at the surface. Two people exchange messages endlessly, but nothing truly touches the soul. The conversation becomes repetitive, predictable, mechanical, and slowly, despite constant communication, emotional distance begins to grow. Because frequency alone does not create intimacy. Emotional sincerity does. Think about rare moments in life when someone truly listened to you, not waiting for their turn to speak, not distracted, not trying to impress you, just fully present. Those moments leave a mark on the heart because genuine attention has become rare in this world, and this is what many people fail to understand. Presence is more powerful than performance. You do not need to become someone louder, more seductive, or more dramatic to remain in someone's mind. Often, the most unforgettable people are remarkably simple in their way of being. But around them, you feel calm, you feel accepted. You feel less alone with yourself. There is a beautiful psychological truth hidden here. Human beings become attached to emotional states more than to physical appearance. Beauty may capture attention for a moment, but emotional comfort captures memory. A person may forget what you wore, what joke you made, or even specific words you said. But they rarely forget the emotional atmosphere they experienced around you. Did they feel judged or understood? Did they feel anxious or peaceful? Did they feel they had to perform or could finally breathe? These questions matter more than people realize. Sometimes, without knowing it, we exhaust others by trying too hard to be interesting. We feel every silence. We constantly seek reactions. But emotional connection is not created through constant stimulation. It is created through authenticity, through emotional honesty, through moments where someone feels they no longer need to protect themselves in your presence. And paradoxically, this kind of emotional impact often comes from softness rather than intensity. A calm voice, a sincere look, a thoughtful silence, a feeling of emotional warmth. These small things travel much deeper into the human memory than dramatic gestures ever could. When someone begins associating you with peace instead of pressure, something changes inside them. They begin thinking about you not because you demanded attention, but because your presence became emotionally restorative. In a noisy world full of emotional tension, peaceful people become unforgettable. And this is why you must stop trying to become impossible to ignore. Instead, become impossible to forget emotionally. Do not ask yourself, how can I make him text me more? Ask yourself, what emotional experience does he associate with me when we are apart? Because that answer determines whether someone remembers your existence or carries your presence inside their inner world. The deepest connections are not built on constant communication. They are built on emotional imprint, on sincerity, on the quiet feeling that with you, life somehow felt lighter, calmer, more real. People forget conversations, but they never forget the feeling of being deeply understood. One of the greatest mistakes people make in love is believing that their value depends on being chosen. And little by little, without realizing it, they begin abandoning themselves in order to secure another person's attention. Their mood depends on a message. Their peace depends on reassurance. Their confidence rises and falls according to someone else's behavior. This is exhausting for the heart, because no human being can feel emotionally stable while placing their worth entirely in another person's hands. When someone becomes the center of your emotional universe, fear quietly enters the relationship. Fear of losing them, fear of silence, fear of distance, and fear changes the way we love. We stop expressing ourselves naturally, we begin monitoring everything, we overanalyze message, delays, tones, reaction. We become emotionally tense, constantly searching for signs that we are still valued, but love cannot flourish inside emotional surveillance. The paradox is that the more desperately we seek validation, less emotionally attractive we become. Not because we are unworthy, but because anxiety has a weight to it. People feel it, even in silence, even through simple interactions. When someone constantly needs proof of love, the relationship slowly shifts from connection to emotional responsibility. And this is where many people lose themselves without noticing. They stop investing in their own life, their passions disappear, their routines lose meaning. Their inner world becomes empty because all their emotional energy is directed outward toward one person. But attraction fades when a person abandons themselves completely. Because what makes someone deeply magnetic is not perfection, it is aliveness. There is something profoundly attractive about a person who remains connected to their own existence, someone who continues learning, creating, laughing, dreaming, exploring life, even while loving another person deeply. Not because they care less, but because their identity does not collapse inside the relationship. This kind of emotional independence creates calmness. And calmness changes everything. When you no longer need constant reassurance to feel worthy, your relationships become lighter. You stop forcing conversations. You stop chasing explanations. You stop trying to control emotions that naturally invade freedom to exist. And strangely enough, this is often when people begin thinking about you more, because emotionally balanced people create space instead of pressure. Imagine two different energies. One person says, "Please don't leave me. Please keep proving that I matter." The other quietly says through their actions, "I care about you deeply, but I also care about myself." Which presence feels calmer? Which presence feels more secure? Which presence feels emotionally safer to love? Many people confuse emotional dependence with love because dependence feels intense. But intensity is not always connection. Sometimes it is simply fear wearing the mask of passion. Real emotional strength is quieter. It is the ability to love without begging, to miss someone without losing your dignity. To desire connection without abandoning your self-respect, to remain soft without becoming emotionally fragile, and this changes the entire dynamic of attraction. Because when you stop seeking validation everywhere, your energy becomes naturally more grounded. You begin speaking differently, moving differently, loving differently. Your presence no longer says, "Complete me." It says, "I already exist fully and I choose to share my life with you." That energy is deeply memorable, not because it is manipulative, not because it creates games or distance, but because emotional wholeness is rare in a world where so many people are secretly starving for reassurance. And perhaps the most beautiful thing happens when you finally stop chasing validation. You begin hearing your own voice again, your own desires, your own peace, your own identity beyond being loved by someone else, because the goal of love was never to disappear into another person. The goal was to remain yourself while building something meaningful together. The person who fears losing love often loses themselves first. There is something fascinating about human attraction. We are naturally drawn toward people who seem deeply connected to life itself. Not people who are constantly trying to impress us, but people who carry a quiet richness within them. A person with depth does not need to beg for attention because their energy already suggests there is something more to discover. And this is what many people misunderstand about mystery. Mystery is not playing games. It is not pretending to be cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. Those behaviors may create confusion, but confusion is not connection. Real mystery is something much softer, much more authentic. It comes from having an inner world that does not revolve entirely around another person. When someone has passions, dreams, reflections, creativity, emotional intelligence, and personal growth happening inside them, they naturally become intriguing. Not because they are hiding themselves, but because they are continuously evolving. And human beings are fascinated by what feels alive. Think about the people who leave the strongest impression on you. Often they are not the loudest people in the room. Sometimes they speak very little. But there is a calm intensity in them, a sense that their life continues beyond the interaction. They are connected to something deeper than external validation. This kind of presence creates curiosity naturally. Many people destroy attraction by becoming emotionally over-available too quickly. They reveal everything at once. Every thought, every insecurity, every expectation. Not because they are sincere, but because they are afraid silence will create distance. Yet emotional connection needs rhythm, it needs gradual discovery. Human beings become attached not only through certainty, but also through imagination. When someone leaves space for curiosity, the mind continues traveling toward them even in their absence. But again, this should never become manipulation. The goal is not to intentionally make someone anxious or uncertain. The goal is simply to stop making another person the only center of your emotional existence. Because when your entire world depends on one relationship, your energy becomes heavy. But when your life remains rich and meaningful, your presence becomes lighter, freer, more magnetic. There is something profoundly attractive about a person who continues growing regardless of who enters or leaves their life. A person who reads, who reflects, who learns new things, who creates beauty, who protects their peace, who spends time understanding themselves. These things may seem unrelated to attraction, but in reality they are deeply connected to it. Because your inner life shapes your emotional energy. And emotional energy is what people remember long after appearances fade. When someone feels that your happiness does not entirely depend on them, they begin seeing you differently. Not as someone trying to hold on to them desperately, but as someone who chooses connection freely. And freedom creates emotional value. This is why fulfilled people often become unforgettable without even trying. Their attention feels sincere because it is not rooted in desperation. Their affection feels calming because it is not mixed with emotional hunger. They do not seek another person to escape themselves. They already know how to live with themselves peacefully. And this changes the entire emotional atmosphere of a relationship. Suddenly, conversations feel more alive because you bring experiences, thoughts, passions, and reflections into them. Your presence becomes inspiring rather than dependent. You stop asking, "How do I keep him thinking about me?" Because your focus shifts toward becoming more connected to your own life. Ironically, this is often when someone thinks about you the most, because attraction grows where there is vitality, where there is movement, where there is emotional depth still unfolding. A person who is deeply connected to themselves never needs to create artificial mystery. Life itself creates it for them. There is always another layer to discover, another dream being built, another transformation taking place quietly inside them. And perhaps this is the most beautiful truth of all. The people who become unforgettable are rarely those who tried hardest to be remembered. They are the ones who became deeply alive. A fulfilled soul does not beg to be noticed, and that is why it becomes unforgettable. At the end of all this, there is one final truth that changes everything in human relationships. Most people believe attraction is created through intensity, through emotional highs and lows, through jealousy, obsession, unpredictability, dramatic passion. And yes, these things can create excitement for a moment. But excitement is not the same as emotional attachment. Chaos can stimulate the mind temporarily, but peace is what the heart longs to return to. Human beings remember the places where they suffered intensely, but they stay attached to the places where they felt emotionally safe. This is why emotional calmness is one of the most powerful forms of attraction, even if the world rarely speaks about it. A calm person creates relief. A calm person does not turn every silence into conflict, every delay into panic, every misunderstanding into emotional warfare. Their presence allows the nervous system to rest, and in today's world, where so many people are emotionally overwhelmed, peace becomes unforgettable. Think about how exhausting many relationships become. One person constantly tests the other. Emotional reaction become performance. Small situations become dramatic storms. People stop feeling connected and start feeling emotionally drained. Yet they often mistake this exhaustion for passion because intensity can feel addictive, but the heart is not nourished by instability. Eventually, every human being seeks emotional refuge. Someone around whom they do not need to defend themselves constantly. Someone whose presence does not create fear, pressure, or confusion. Someone who knows how to remain emotionally grounded even during uncertainty. This kind of calmness is not weakness. It is emotional maturity. It means learning not to react impulsively every time anxiety appears. It means not allowing temporary emotions to control your behavior completely. Many people destroy beautiful connections because they react from fear instead of awareness. One delayed message becomes a personal rejection. One misunderstanding becomes proof they are unloved. And from this emotional panic, they say things they regret, create unnecessary distance, or damage trust slowly over time. But emotionally calm people understand something important. Not every space is rejection. Not every difficult moment means the connection is dying, and because they understand this, they bring stability into relationships instead of chaos. There is something deeply comforting about a person who remains gentle even during emotional tension. Someone who listens before reacting. Someone who protects the connection instead of trying to win every emotional battle. These people become unforgettable because their love feels safe rather than exhausting. You see, the human nervous system remembers emotional experiences very clearly. If someone constantly associates you with stress, pressure, guilt, or instability, they may feel attached through emotional dependence, but deep inside they also feel tired. Over time, exhaustion pushes people away. But when someone associates you with emotional calmness, they begin craving your presence naturally. Not because you manipulated them, but because being around you feels emotionally lighter. And all human beings move instinctively toward what brings them peace. This is why emotional self-control is so important. Not emotional repression, but emotional awareness. The ability to pause before reacting, to breathe before assuming the worst, to communicate without aggression, to remain connected to your dignity even when emotions become intense. Calmness protects love. And perhaps one of the most beautiful forms of attraction is knowing how to create emotional safety for another human being. To become a place where someone feels accepted instead of judged, heard instead of attacked, understood instead of controlled. This does not mean becoming passive or tolerating disrespect. Emotional peace also requires boundaries. But even boundaries can be expressed calmly. A person who respects themselves does not need emotional violence to express truth. In the end, the people who remain in our hearts the longest are rarely the loudest ones. They are often the people whose presence made lives feel softer, simpler. More the excitement fades, after all the uncertainty disappears, the heart quietly asks only one question. Where did I feel most at peace? The heart returns to the place where it feels calm.